Oon Ciq, the Cursed Unicorn, for Sam Wicker's Character Randomizer Challenge. Oon Ciq woke with a pounding headache and a worse taste in her mouth. The swaying motion and the heady scent of musk and horse told her she was riding on Thaddeus's back and not in a wagon. It also told her she was about to vomit, which she did about 20 heartbeats later. Thad swore in unsurprised dismay, then dumped her on her rump, leaving a spatter of half-digested berries, grain, and wine across his back. "Cursed unicorn! I was trying to be nice." He scrubbed at his hindquarters with the mat she had been laying on. "I'm sorry, Thad," Oon wept, as she looked up at the magnificent beast. Then she vomited again, all over her mane and tail. Being intoxicated meant kept the master from drinking too much of her blood, but it came at a humiliating cost, almost as humiliating as her cursed state. Centaur Thaddeus Ironhoof joined Master Demaplec's mystical creature menagerie a decade ago to search for his soul half. He worked as a guard. His employment kept many a master-at-arms of the Lord cities they visited from conscripting him into malicious service and allowed him to travel. After every town and province, Oon thanked whatever star spirits watched over her that he did not find his true, because she loved him. Marine, the mermaid, raised up in her tank and offered him a wet cloth as her wagon rolled by slowly. "Hand her up, and I will bathe her before we get to Reykjavik." "No!" Oon whimpered and gagged as Thad hoisted her up and dumped her in the tank unceremoniously. The water sloshed, and Oon panicked. Her short horse legs flailed uselessly as she sank. Marine lifted her to the surface, where Thad held her jaw, keeping her nose above the water as the mermaid scrubbed the fermented mash from the unicorn's mane and tail. Oon felt the shimmer of magic along her iridescent white coat and from her horn. Offering to bathe the hungover unicorn wasn't completely altruistic on Marine's part. Unicorn magic purified any water they stirred with their horn or bathed in, so it saved Marine the work of cleaning her tank before the next show. Oon's head was dunked under, and she neighed her panic as she surfaced and cursed. "Let me out, you damned fish witch! Clean your own tank!" Marine laughed, and it sounded like music, as she hugged Oon to her. "Aw, don't be that way, Oon. You know I love you more than my tail." Marine was one of the only ones who understood Oon's curse. Both wanted long, strong legs. Neither would have them. Marine had joined the traveling circus with the hopes to find a witch or wizard who could give her legs. 3 decades later, she was still traveling. Oon laid against her, helpless and weak. She looked through the glass at the mountain range covering the entire horizon. Several peaks spewed steam and ash. "Where are we?" she whined. The air smelled acidic and rancid, and it wasn't just her vomit this time. "Almost to Reykjavik." Thaddeus stamped a hoof. "It's not a very reputable town, just a travel stop for people heading between the Lord cities and the Dwarven Miners' Guild outpost, but there is a dragon hatchery in the mountains." He reached up and took Oon from Marine, then bent deeply to put her on the ground, because he was so tall and she was not. Don't go to the tavern here. The satyr captain of the guard in the last town said mysticals disappear here. I don't want you swiped again, and it isn't like your cursed legs can carry you fast enough to get away. I told you I was sorry about that. Oon apologized again. She shook off the water, creating a rainbow around her. Tiny white flowers bloomed where the drops fell on the red clay road. Thad just snorted in acknowledgement, then trotted ahead to the lead wagon as she watched him go with longing eyes. He never let her forget the many times he had played centaur in shining armor to save her from those who wanted a unicorn for nefarious purposes, or half unicorn in her case. Since the unicorns vanished 2 centuries ago, only half-corns like Oon remained. Her mother was a miniature donkey who stole a magic mirror to change her appearance in order to seduce a unicorn stallion. The deceit was the reason Oon was cursed with bizarrely short legs and a black mane and tail. A cursed tail which often caused trouble for Oon because it had almost a mind of its own and liked shiny things or oddities like a magpie or raven. He's never going to look at you like that, sweetie, Maureen murmured as she swished in her tank. I'm so sorry. Someday he'll realize no one will ever love him more than me, Oon retorted wistfully as she trotted beside the giant fish tank wagon. The shrunken kraken that shared Maureen's tank clicked something, and Maureen hissed back at him to be silent. Enraged by the jab at her unhealthy obsession with the centaur, Oon snapped at him waspishly. At least I'm not here because I'm a reject from a cannery ship. The kraken clicked more rude things as Maureen laughed musically. Holding her head high, Oon swished her tail and galloped past the giant tortoise pulling the tanks. It took a long time to catch up with the lead wagon on her short legs. The ant, driving the wagon, reached down and scooped her up. I see you're awake. After the master had his drink, he groaned and rustled his leaves and limbs as she stared at Thaddeus in the distance. Rook, the werewolf, was trotting beside him in wolf form. She turned away and stuck her head in the open basket behind the seat for a mouthful of dried elderberry berries, not commenting as she chewed. You don't have to feed him. You work. It is abuse. Master D doesn't drink much, and I only stand around to get petted. That isn't really working. You do more than that. The olden elm disagreed with her. You keep our water pure and the tank spotless. Ringmaster only needs me to feed the master. That's it. Maureen can keep the fish tanks clean without me. I don't earn my keep. I can't even give rides. Oon complained in self-deprecating embarrassment, repeating the discouraging words often said to her over the last 150 years. She turned to take another mouthful of dried elderberries, but Olden covered the basket and put a bucket of oats on the seat between them. Eat. Regain your strength. You need to be able to walk when we get to town. The master is sated, and you should be able to stay sober for a few days. Grumpily, Oon took a bite of the grains. She would be drunk again before moonrise after the arrival parade. The last time she sobered up completely, the master was lured from his coffin by the sweet smell of her blood and almost drained her dry. If he had broken off her horn, she would have died. He was nearly senile at 2,000 years old, but his ability to inspire awe and wonder in the minds of any living creature meant their traveling freak show of misfits and mystical creatures made more money than many much larger circuses. Chewing the grains, she tipped her head to look at the smoke and fire-spitting peaks, wondering which one held the dragon hatchery. This place looked familiar, and she wondered if this was where they got Fangle over a century and 2 decades ago. After so long, all the places they went looked the same. The old dragon died 3 stops ago, and only selling his scales had kept the company's income up enough to come here and barter for an egg or hatchling. Dragons didn't live very long, but neither did anything else when compared to unicorns and vampires, or vampires that fed from unicorns. The circus paraded into town. Oon pranced and greeted people, acting the friendly little beast and neighing adorably. Her tail swished, letting many touch its silky length. The perk of being a half-unicorn was dirt and dust would not cling to her as it did to a normal beast. The downside was every person felt a little happier for touching her at the cost of her magic. She didn't heal them, but she was told it felt that way. Perhaps that was why she woke to Thaddeus carrying her. The centaur had fought off a mountain orc with Rook the werewolf while she was feeding the master. She noticed a taller than normal dark elf studying her legs with a look of disparagement. Oon could hear her thoughts about chariot racing and how useless Oon would be. It made her raging mad, but she pranced up to the child next to the dark elf and whinnied adorably. When the dark elf put the small golden cube she had been fidgeting with in her fingers into her pocket, Oon's tail flicked and swished. Slapping the elf with the silken strands, she pickpocketed the trinket. Then she dashed away on her tiny legs with one more treasure to add to her tails collection. Having a tail like a raven's didn't mean feathers in Oon's case. It meant that her tail sometimes acted on its own to collect shiny trinkets, but sometimes it would act on Oon's wishes when she was feeling particularly passive-aggressive. Her tail tucked the trinket in the feed bag hanging loose around her neck. No one noticed as she twirled around. Trotting up to the lead wagon, she neighed for Olden Elm to pick her up because her legs were tired. But Master Jinx gave her a glare above his friendly smile. "Come one, come all to see the mystical and magical creatures of Master de Maplac's menagerie. Behold, here we have the last unicorn, cursed by magic most foul. She alone remains in the kingdoms of her magical kind. You can pet her if you like. She loves to comfort people's heart and hear the laughter of children." His look told her to get back to work, so she reared up and twirled on her stubby hind legs, almost falling over before she bounced over to a dwarf woman with a little girl. The child's eyes were large and glassy as she stared at the cursed unicorn. Oon took a small step back from the horror and trauma in the girl's soul, then looked at the woman's soul, seeing she was the aunt who rescued the girl from terrible abuse. A single tear leaked down the unicorn's cheek as she rubbed her face on the child's scarred arm, touching her horn to the frail girl's forehead before anyone could stop her. Oon took her nightmares as Thaddeus and Jinx both shouted, "No!" Light like a rainbow exploded as both unicorn and dwarf child collapsed. It hurt to feel every blow, every burn, every lash, and every ache of starvation. But the little girl could grow up with happiness now. Sobbing in desperate neighs, Oon whirled away from the woman and child and darted through the stunned crowd as fast as she could. For every tear that fell, a flower bloomed. She ran until her tiny, cursed legs collapsed. Wheezing, she looked up through teary eyes. A swinging sign hung unmoving. Slingin' Jack's Alehouse. Sticking her head in her decorative feed bag, she picked out a golden coin and trotted inside. It was remarkably clean for a tavern, but oddly smelled of scrambled eggs and exotic spices. Oon didn't care as she clomped up to the lowest level of tables in the bar. She knew they were probably for trolls and imps and pixies, but she didn't care. She put the coin on the table as the waiter danced over. "How may I serve you?" He spun and bowed with remarkable grace for one of his age. Eyeing him hostilely, Oon demanded, "What's your name?" "I am Quasar Minx, and I'll be your—" The green-skinned, white-haired, hobbit-looking waiter started to dance again, but she seized his legs with her tail and jerked him to his knees. "Look, Minx, don't bounce, don't dance, just don't." His look became enraged, and she could feel him raging because he thought she was disparaging his grace. Shaking her head, Oon declared, "I just want wine. I don't care about your dancing." What are you? Were you cursed too? Hobbits aren't green." He picked up the coin and left without a word. Coming back, he brought a bottle, a bowl, a half-gold coin, plus several silver and copper coins. He poured the bowl of wine and left. Oon gulped it down, trying to get the little girl's memories and nightmares out of her head, trying to drown them, while he walked away. Despite the cheap, tainted taste, she finished the bowl and bit the neck of the bottle, pouring more into the bowl. Tears leaked down her cheeks, dripping into the wine and changing it so it became something the lords of the cities would want to drink. She kept gulping it. A perk of being a half-unicorn? Her tears made the cheap wine she drank better. She finished the bottle and was starting to feel the buzzing numbness of alcohol. It wasn't enough. She could still feel the memories of a horrible childhood not her own. "Minx!" He was across the bar and that was starting to fill with patrons. He danced and bowed very gracefully, but Oon didn't care about that. Her bottle and bowl were empty. "Minx! Bring me 2 more, and keep the change." She nosed 2 silver coins to him. She knew it was far more than the wine costed, but she had learned that good tips would earn her some allowances, because she could be a very mean drunk. He brought the bottles, but only one was open. "You are very small. Are you sure you should be?" "If I want your opinion, I'll pay for it." Oon neighed loudly. "Pour!" He filled the bowl as a group of dwarves came in from the sulphur mine. Oon could smell them. Feeling the greedy taint of their souls, one patted her on the rump as he walked by, and she kicked. Not enough to hurt anyone, because her cursed legs were useless, but it startled him, making his fellows laugh. "Oi! Easy now!" he scolded, as the dark elf from the parade came to Oon's table. "Leave her be," she warned. Suddenly she looked much more formidable than she had in the crowd. The dwarf was a head shorter than the dark elf, so he moved on. She sat cross-legged beside the short table. After the miners walked away, she looked at Oon. "I saw you heal that little girl's soul." "Yeah, so?" Oon hiccuped. "Sometimes I can't help myself." She licked the bowl like a dog, then tried to pick up the bottle as she wavered on her hoofs. She knew she wasn't drunk enough to stop the child's nightmares. She needed some elderberries. "I am Lajik Rabed, the champion chariot racer." She twisted her blue hair as Minx brought her an ale. He refilled Oon's bowl. "Oon Ciq, the last unicorn, and a cursed one at that. I know what you are, and what you think about my legs being useless." More tears leaked down the unicorn's cheek, as every disparaging thing ever said to her mixed with the dwarf child's misery. "Go away." "You should not be alone, and I am already sitting." Lajik started twisting another strand of hair, then another as she drank without speaking. It was a weird fidget that was slowly courting the elf's blue hair. They drank in silence. Lajik watched the other patrons come and go with sharp eyes. Oon could feel the worry of those looking at Lajik, fearing her race for no good reason. Biased. Dwarves were always so damn biased, and Oon hated them. They and their clans that hollowed out the mountains, leaving nothing inside. Angrily, she wished they could do that to her. Lajik stretched her long legs out, and Oon hated her for a moment. Well, not her, just her legs. Oon envied them as she finished the bowl and second bottle. Picking up the third bottle, Oon set it on the floor and pulled at the cork with her teeth. Lajik tipped her head. "May I?" Suspiciously, Oon squinted at her through her drunken haze. "Why would you help me?" "You're distressed." She picked up the bottle and dug out the cork. Smelling the wine, she made a face. "How can you drink this?" "Give me the bottle." Lajik set it down on the table, so Oon stood on her tiny, wobbly back legs, putting her eye to the bottle opening. Thinking about the futility of everything, she let her tears drip into the bottle, then hopped down. "Try it now," Oon ordered her arrogantly. Raising a fine arched brow, the elf sniffed the bottle, then looked at the unicorn in surprise. Sipping it, she gasped, "It tastes amazing." Oon smirked. "I know. That's why they keep me. My magic purifies any water or liquid. It's what kept Fangle alive so long." Then she sobbed as she collapsed to the floor. She blubbered loudly for several minutes, bringing minks back to their table. "May I get you ladies some food?" He appraised the unicorn as he picked up the empty bottle, wondering what manner of creature she really was, because unicorns were rumored to be as tall as centaurs. "I'm not here for food," Logique answered. "I'm here for dragon eggs." The omelets are served downstairs." Minx looked around uncomfortably. "I said I'm not hungry." Logique looked at him oddly. "I came to buy dragon eggs. I was told I could do that here." "What are you talking about?" Minx demanded under his breath, looking around nervously. "What are you talking about?" Logique asked back with a coldly inquisitive gaze that could only be managed by one of her kind. It made him shudder. Oon sniffed. "I want a dragon egg too. Fangle was my friend, but he got old and died." To their surprise, the unicorn picked up the bottle by the neck and guzzled from it like a baby bottle. Fruity-smelling burgundy liquid leaked from the sides of her mouth. Then she coughed, choking for a moment as she spat the bottle out. She staggered back and forth on her short legs before she collapsed and began snoring. I think you ladies need to leave. We don't have dragon eggs for sale here, just omelets. You need to go and take the unicorn with you," Manx declared in quiet hostility as he wiped up the spilled wine off the table. He kept glancing around furtively. "I feel like you're lying to me, hobbit troll." Logique tipped her head with a raised eyebrow as Oon hiccuped and woke herself up. "He is. He's a liar," the drunk unicorn slurred. Then she fell on her side, passed out again. "Just go," Minx insisted, as he handed all but one of Oon's coins to her. "You have to go up the mountain to get eggs. Don't come back here. Go!" He nervously tried to get rid of them. Shrugging, Logique picked up Oon and walked out. The tiny unicorn rested on her shoulder like a baby. Sighing, the dark elf turned toward the place the traveling circus settled at the end of Rezhnek. As she walked, a werewolf in wolf form trotted up to her. He growled slightly. "I am no threat to your friend. It seems we are both seeking the same thing, dragon's eggs. I would like to speak with your ringmaster." He howled, then cocked his head listening, before he nodded with a chuff and turned to walk toward the circus. Logique followed. Oon woke at the sound of the horn trumpeting the show would open soon. She was shocked to see the dark elf sitting on a bale of hay, twisting strands of hay into a complex knot. "Why are you here, Laj? Whatever." "Logique, you passed out in the bar after you healed the dwarf child. I brought you here. Ringmaster Jinx is going to let me come with him when he goes to the dragon hatchery." Yawning, Oon watched her for a moment, then asked, "What does a chariot champion of the Lord Cities want with dragons?" She went and stuck her head in a half barrel full of water. Shaking out her mane, the water drops created a rainbow and fell on the ground, causing little white flowers to spring up. Oon began twisting another straw knot. I'm bored racing horses. I want to try something new. I thought about hippocamps pulling chariots, but I hate seawater. Then I thought about dragons. I think they could be trained to pull chariots. Like flying chariots? Oon's mouth paused over her basket of dried elderberries as she stared at the dark elf with her eyes narrowed suspiciously. Have you been into my elderberries? Thaddeus paused in the doorway. His look crushed her heart. Ringmaster Jinx wants you to go to your place in the tent if you are finished chatting up your friend. Oon nodded stupidly, feeling guilty for talking to Oon because it upset him. Centaurs and dark elves did not get along after the 2 centuries' war. She watched him go with longing, then she bowed her head. Why do you care for him? He obviously despises you. Oon's mouth curved downward. I'm cursed. He doesn't know I'm his soul half. She stuck her nose in her feed bag and picked out the jeweled cube she'd encouraged her tail to steal. Putting it on the hay next to Oon apologized. I'm sorry I let my tail take this from you. She picked up a scoop in her teeth and filled her bag with elderberries before she left. Oon? Oon held out her hand. It was full of coins. This is your change from buying wine last night. You don't want to keep it? Oon looked at her soul closely, then bowed her head. Thank you. My chest is over there. The stubby-legged unicorn trotted out of the stall and across the camp toward the large tent under the banner, Master de Maplac's Mystical Creature Menagerie. A shadow passed overhead, and Oon looked up with her hand held above her eyes. When she looked back to the tent, Oon was gone. One moment she was walking to the big top, the next she was flying. Too terrified to even struggle against the dragon claws around her middle, Oon squeezed her eyes shut as it soared higher. Please don't drop me, she chanted over and over. Don't drop me. The smell of sulfur and ash became much stronger, so she peeked out through one eye. There was a cracked lava lake shifting and oozing to one side. The heat would have singed her beautiful mane and tail if she were closer. Instead, the dragon banked and landed by a statue twice as tall as a centaur. The dragon landed ungracefully on its back legs, flapping its wings excitedly. It dropped her, and she landed spread-legged like a starfish. Look, Elder Gin, I found a pretty pearly. Can I add it to my hoard? The statue hummed as Oon looked up at it. She realized it wasn't a statue. The giant golem knelt to one knee and studied her. Their metallic gray surface was lined with glossier scars. Pulled back red hair reached almost to their waist. It was a very old golem, probably older than her. Such things weren't made anymore. They didn't exist because they had been destroyed for the value of their metallic blood and flesh. But there they were, standing over her. Please, can I keep her? It's so pretty, the young dragon begged in a childish voice. I like pearls and pearly things. Oon scrambled to her feet in fear. I... Her vision burned in the sulphurous air. She blinked back tears, then everything retreated into darkness. Choking on the vapors, she fainted while the golem was refusing the dragonling. You cannot keep the pearly thing. The last thing she heard was the dragon's petulant whine. But it's so pretty! Waking slightly, Oon felt Elder carrying her. The golem muttered about how to get her back down to the village without getting the dragons or themselves destroyed. She was laid down on soft ash or sand and left. Listening to the golem moving around, she squinted her eyes open. She watched it open a giant chest and take out a bag the size of her head. It looked small in the giant golem's hand. Here, Lefleur, take these pearls. You may keep them in trade for the pearly horse thing. Real pearls are found in oysters by the sea. They walked out, giving the young dragonling a lecture on where pearls were found and how to harvest them. Oon let herself fall asleep again. She was so tired and uncaring of her fate now that she knew she wouldn't be eaten. Looking around the cave as she woke, Oon realized she was in the dragon hatchery. Giant scaled eggs, encrusted with jewels, laid all around her in the soft mixture of sand and ash. Her treacherous tail wrapped around one. No! Stop it, you stupid thing! Let go! She pulled, bit, yanked, and pled, but her tail would not release its grip on the jeweled dragon egg. It's bigger than I am! You can't be serious! Huffing, she struggled to drag the egg, bigger than her body, after her. But her tiny, cursed legs only made it about 20 steps before she collapsed in exhaustion. Crying in frustration, she stuck her nose in her feed bag and began chewing her dried elderberries. Why do you hate me? She bemoaned as she laid on the hot sand. This is the dumbest thing you ever stole, arse carpet! Standing resolutely, Oon began dragging the egg after her up the incline, following the golem and dragon footprints. 20 steps and many curses later, she stopped and rested, ate more elderberries, and repeated the whole thing over. Stopping at a pool of sulphurous water, she stirred it with her horn until it was pure and gulped it. Angrily, she bit the base of her tail and yelped at the pain. Oh, come on! Just let go! Jerking and jumping, she struggled to get her tail to let go of its prize, and failed. As she panted and sobbed in defeat, the jeweled egg shifted slightly, then more. Panicking, Oon scrambled on her with her stubby legs flailing, throwing clouds of sandy ash behind her. Let go! Let go, tail! Ah! The egg rolled back down the incline, taking Oon with it. Rolling over her twice, it came to a stop with her head and horn buried in the soft ash-covered floor, and her body clinging to it like an upside-down starfish. Achoo! Oon sneezed so hard the egg rolled, coming to rest with her on top of it. Shaking her head viciously, Before she sneezed again, she snorted out a cloud of dust. Why? Why? Crying, she started to get another bite of elderberries. She chomped down once, then spat the mouthful on the floor. Her bag was filled with the sandy ash mixture with her berries and trinkets. Ack! Flicking her tongue in and out, she tried to shake off the ash, but it was hopeless. Crawling off the dragon egg, she began dragging it for the long trek up the incline to get a drink of water, all the while cursing her kleptomaniacal tail for not releasing the jeweled orb, with phrases in every language she knew and some she made up. After a long day and possibly night, Oon crawled out of the cavern entrance, panting and pissed off. Looking across the volcanic scree-field, Oon saw Ringmaster Jinx standing behind Thaddeus Ironhoof the centaur, with Lajik Rabed, the dark elf, and oddly, Quasar Minx from Slingin' Jack's alehouse. Elder Jenny was spitting lava onto Thaddeus's shield as the group retreated. The golem bellowed, "What do you mean they're scrambling our eggs?" The town mayor was running away. "Thaddeus, no!" she whinnied, then began jerking the egg, desperate to aid the centaur she loved. "Stop! Let go!" She tried to run toward the group, but the egg was lodged against a piece of stone. Twisting, she scooted around the egg and began to push it over the obstruction. Suddenly, the egg came free and careened down the hill, taking a screaming Oon with it. But instead of rolling toward her companions, it veered toward the lava river. "Help! Help!" Oof! Her breath wheezed out as the egg rolled over the top of her and dragged her toward the lava lake. She stopped just at the edge and backpedaled with her short legs, trying to put some distance between her and the fall into the lava. Suddenly, the dragon ling that snatched her the first place scooped her up from the edge and landed a safe distance away. "My pretty, my pearly, are you hurt?" "Put me down, you wretched dragon!" Panting, she turned in her traumatized rage on the creature, then looked back to the group rushing toward her. Her tail still held to the egg from within the circle of the young dragon's claws as she neighed loudly, "Jinx! Pay for this damn dragon egg so I can go get drunk!" "Oon, what are you doing here?" Thaddeus demanded in an annoyed tone. "Causing trouble?" Trouble?" Oon sputtered indignantly, then pointed her horn at the dragon. "He snatched me! He thinks I'm a pearl!" Her heart broke in realization that Thaddeus wasn't here for her. She whimpered, "You didn't come to rescue me?" "Don't be ridiculous. I told you not to go to that tavern." Thad snorted and turned to clomp back to Ringmaster Jinx. He called over his shoulder, "You're lucky that Minx fellow sent you away with the dark elf before you were eaten." Lajik Rabed glared at his back, then turned to smile sadly at Oon. "I'm sorry. They didn't believe me when I told them you were snatched." She looked up at the fire golem. "Elder Jin, I know you are distressed by the fate of your missing eggs, but I have no intention of cooking your eggs or harming your dragons. I want to begin a new venture. I believe dragon chariot racing will provide an, an avenue of income and prove favorable to the reputation of dragons everywhere. And my unicorn friend has a cursed tail. It won't let go. I will pay for the egg it chose. Ginny worked their jaw back and forth grumpily, then ordered, "LaFleur, could you carry Unicorn Oon and her tail's egg?" The young dragonling looked at Oon with the same adoring eyes she had always given Thaddeus, as he carefully lifted her and the egg to follow with an awkward three-legged gait. Legique looked up at Oon, cradled in the dragonling's claw. The dark elf's blue skin was a stark contrast to the red and gray terrain. She asked, "Have you ever considered leaving the mystical creature's menagerie? It seems you hold the affection of dragons." Oon bit back a snarky retort as she realized she truly was worthless to her circus, and sighed. "Where would I go? What would I do? I'm just a cursed unicorn halfling." "Minx has maps of many places, but you could stay here with me. I am pretty sure Gollum Ginny is going to destroy the town, or at least the tavern. It seems the mayor's tavern has been serving dragon egg omelets and was planning on cooking most of the mystical creatures in the menagerie and the dragons from the weir and hatchery." Legique turned her jeweled cube, then rolled it across the back of her knuckles as she considered the future of dragon chariot racing. Minx came over with Elder Ginny, as Elder Ginny stomped down the mountain, with several of the larger dragons following. We should head back to the circus. I don't think the town will be there tonight." He agreed to let the citizens leave according to the wishes of the lords of the city. "Wait, is he going to destroy the tavern? What about my wine? How will I get drunk?" Oon panicked for a moment, then demanded, "LaFleur, take me back to the town. Hurry!" "Yes, my pearl, as you wish." The young dragonling obediently leapt skyward. Looking after them, Minx asked Legique, "Do you think she'll be able to get enough wine?" "You've seen her drink. Do you really think there is such a thing as enough?" Legique looked over at the white-haired hobbit troll. "Are you going to take up Ringmaster Jink's offer of traveling with the menagerie, or return to the cities?" "Are you going to travel with them? Making maps from Dragonback seems more accurate." It would be." Then they followed the ringmaster and centaur, following the golem leading the dragon horde to avenge their lost eggs. Both knew it would be an interesting afternoon. Well, what do you think? Oon, the alcoholic, passive-aggressive, kleptomaniac, unicorn halfling, was the character I rolled in writer Sam Wicker's Character Randomizer Challenge, where we used D&D dice to figure out what our characters were. If you watch the video linked below, you'll see my reaction to my character because, honestly, I hate unicorns. I truly do. I do not like them, and so this was the best I could do. I hope you enjoyed. Be blessed and have a very lovely day.